Hello everybody, welcome to Comics Tuesday, and today we're going to be talking about continuity. To start off, let's talk about why continuity is important. You see, when you're following a character over a long period of time, continuity following fluidly from one story to the next is the only way that you really get to know the characters, because you have to have some frame of reference for what they've been through or the way they'll react in various situations. So it really helps to have the previous stories to be able to follow it into the future. Also, it's really hard to feel like the story you're reading right now has any meaning whatsoever if it's not going to matter later on. They could just write one story this month and a completely unrelated one with the same characters next month. Why should you care how it is? But as you follow along in a single continuity, over time there starts to be problems with it. The more obvious one is the characters would get too old, you know? Superman's been around for 70 years. He'd be gray-headed by now. And also, all the bad guys would be gone. Who hasn't Superman taken on? And constantly throwing new situations and scenarios at our characters. It builds up and up and up. And it gets harder to follow. And also in the short period, with things like crossovers, it's a little bit too easy to just miss out on part of the story. Longtime readers of comic books, I'm sure, have all experienced the scenario where, let's say you pick up issue 8 of a book, the next month you pick up issue 9, and it's not following the same story at all. You can tell there's this large missing chunk, so then you've got to go out and look for what book told that part of the story. And it's frustrating. And lastly is possibly the thing I am most frustrated about with trying to follow a certain continuity, and that is when writers don't know their own material and they mess it up. I don't mind mild ones. Back in the day, Stan Lee himself used to call Bruce Banner Bob Banner. We get what he's saying. But when you have writers writing stories that conflict against whole other stories that they wrote, that's a problem. But there are a lot of different kinds of solutions that exist to the problems that long continuities present. The easiest is just little refreshers. You can have little Stan Lee style boxes saying, Mr. Fantastic can stretch. And then that's all you need to know. Or, hey, if you want to find out about this adventure that Batman went on, read Detective Comics number whatever. And that takes care of a whole lot of it. There's also the solution to just have your stories, for the most part, stand alone. If you're going to write a Superman story, he came from Krypton, Krypton blew up. But aside from that, you can do a whole lot of stuff and just not have to worry about the whole history. And also, when a character or set of characters are really bogged down with long continuity, one really simple solution is to just change your cast of characters. And if all else fails, you can do what DC's been doing historically, which is you reach a certain point where it's hard to keep telling your stories and hard to be creative and hard for new readers to dig into the material, so you reboot it. You do some sort of a story that changes everything about all the books and all the characters and all the storylines. And then after that point, you can do whatever you want. If you choose to reference one of the older stories, it happened. If not, you don't have to worry about conflicting with anything. The most important thing is that depending on the story, universe, characters, that the solutions to handling continuity fit. Some examples of that are, I mentioned a moment ago, switching out casts of characters. That might sound totally preposterous, but it has worked with nearly every legacy character. When you have Wally West become the Flash, you don't need to know the majority of Barry Allen's history. Just start reading Wally. More recently, you have Miles Morales taking over the Ultimate Universe in place of Peter Parker. Suddenly, Peter Parker stories are not necessary, You can just start with Miles and keep going. And a lot of these methods, when publishers attempt them, it's got to be done with care. Like so many things in writing stories. And there's lots of examples of them going good and bad. I mentioned before DC rebooting their crises. And that's always taken the form of some kind of silly story where all the heroes get together and they have big heroic moments. And in the end, the writers have freed themselves up to do whatever they want with the characters. And in my opinion, that works. It's good. Now, the wrong way to do that is what Marvel is currently doing. And in Secret Wars, it's just very bummer and downer, and they keep trying to get emotional reactions that they haven't earned. And they just stop all of their books, every single one, dead in their tracks. And for nearly a year, we have nothing but Secret Wars, which I'm not too impressed by. So whenever this finally ends, and they give us more of the regular stuff, it better be good. But moving on, a classic method is just ignoring continuity. Not as a whole, because like I said, having some sense of continuity really does matter. But when done selectively, ignoring stories and elements of stories is quite possibly the best way to go. Because when it comes to changing around history and stories that I've loved since I was a child, it's best to be gentle and to do the minimum. So, for example, if they retell Spider-Man's origin and just, instead of saying that it's in the 60s or in the 70s, maybe now it was in the 90s, that's okay. It's fine. It just keeps the character up to date. It doesn't conflict too badly with what already exists. It's a good way to go about things. There's also where stories are really unpopular or are very poorly written. I don't think there's anything at all wrong with just never mentioning them again or writing stories later that totally contradict it. But that's the good way to do it. The bad way is what I mentioned before, the writers just not knowing their material. And some examples of this are like in the Spider-Man story, Shed, poor dumb Peter is fighting the Lizard, and then when the Lizard's speaking to him, he acts like he's never heard it before. Except that also happened the first time he fought the Lizard, so I don't know what that's about. Also in Spider-Man, there's the one odd reference to Aunt May's maiden name being Fitzgerald. It was not, it was Riley, as in Ben Riley. I don't think I've forgotten it, I haven't. And also Kryptonite. Alright, Kryptonite. You tell me, what exactly does Kryptonite do to Superman? Now I want to take a moment or two to talk about a version of continuity management that I, so far, absolutely love. And that is DCU. And what they've done is it's weird because I feel like I shouldn't love this as much as I do. But it is DC more or less just being indecisive. In the past, they've taken their whole continuity and taken it in a new direction. Now they're taking it in every direction. They've literally split all of their books up into chunks, handfuls of books that share continuity with each other. And then over here's another handful with another continuity. And they're just not playing the continuity too tightly. They're letting whatever stories you're reading continue on in their path, and then branching off this and that and lots of others. They have something for every type of reader. If you're a fan of like indie books, they have a lot of books that stylistically look like that. For example, a couple of them are Midnighter, Section 8. I saw those a couple of times on the shelf at the comic book store, and I honestly thought they were image books. So that's really exciting to me. For children, they have things like Teen Titans Go and Batmite, just silly things with a nice sense of humor. For long-time comic book readers, they have their team books. They have Justice League and Justice League of America have all of the classic iterations of the heroes. And meanwhile, they have the real big players, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, in their solo books. They're doing all sorts of new, weird things with them. Superman is majorly depowered and a lot more vulnerable than we've ever seen it. Batman, Jim Gordon is Batman, who would have thought? And Green Lantern, very bad fashion sense. Meanwhile, Wonder Woman, Batgirl, Starfire all have female leads represented in a very positive fashion. It would be a real challenge right now to find any group of potential comic book reader that wouldn't want to read something from DC. Marvel, on the other hand, almost seems like they're trying to drive away their fans. It kind of stands in stark contrast that Marvel's put a core kit in their series, in a sense. I'm a Marvel guy primarily, so the majority of things that I want to read aren't around right now. And I'm not too enthused about Secret Wars itself, so I look over to DC, and right now, they're killing it. But the long and the short of it is, continuity is something that's got to be handled really gently, and you got to have a good gauge for what fans really like and what they don't care so much about, to tell an interesting, concise story, and to keep it going month after month. Hey, it's a hard job, but lots of comic book fans, including myself, really appreciate it when it's done well. That's about it for this week. And now it's time for the viewer question of the week, which is, what, in your opinion, is the weirdest weakness that a superhero has? I'm going to say that I think it's Spider-Man's weakness, Drew pesticides. Yes, that's real. Weird weaknesses. Leave your answers down in the comment section below, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and come back next time for Comics Tuesday. And on the next Comics Tuesday, we talk Stan Lee versus Bruce Lee. Thanks for watching.